Hello, everyone. Welcome back. It is a Saturday. I am here. We are chilling. Let me fix a thing. There we go. That's better. I am so happy to be back. I am your friendly neighborhood Prax. Welcome to the channel. Saturday nights, we talk about books. And I have not been here for a couple weeks. Mostly because of, things beyond my control, like having to get a new CPU, or fixing my CPU more accurately, and timing, and all of this other wonderful stuff that just was like, Saturday nights are not going to work right now. So we are back. We have lots of things to talk about. We have lots of interesting things to talk about. But how are we all doing? How's life out there in the interwebs, out in the ways of the world, shall we say? I'm doing pretty good. I'm feeling pretty good about life. I've got some chill things. That's just not. Here we go. That's better. Little things to fix. That's better. But we have some books we've been chatting about. We have a number of them that I've got on my list to talk about, mostly because, giant pile of stuff that we haven't talked about recently. And I'm happy to be back. Welcome in, Faison. How's life for you this Saturday night? I have been working through my list of things. Oh, that's not good. Why is that doing that? Okay. Well, first of all, let's get rid of that, because apparently that's not in a good place tonight, so we'll change that. And I look like not that great, but that's okay. I'm feeling kind of chill. The weather, no game for a change. Oh, welcome in. Welcome in, Coldrake. Yeah, I let my hair down. It's very chill kind of night. It's a chill kind of night. But first of all, thank you, everybody. Thank you across to all of you. We did a donation drive through April. It was supposed to be only for 2 weeks, but because of my computer situation and a bunch of things, I extended it all the way through April, and we ended up raising $300 for Fisher House Charities and Fisher House Foundation, and yay for us. That also means that apparently now we have a Thresher Maw waiting for us on Tachanka. Life is great. But for those of you who don't know, on Sunday nights, we have an TTRPG. We're playing Mass Effect: The Gathering Dark. I get to be one of the players in that game, and our wonderful GM Pope granted the audience of Thresher Maw. We appreciate you, audience, for your donations. But if you miss out on any of the vids, there's the VOD or up. There we go. Another great thing about real solid books: if electronic devices act up, books will never glitch on you. That's fair. I will admit that I got a lot of reading done while stressing about fixing my computer and trying to determine if it was the video card, the CPU, or the motherboard, none of which are good things. Luckily, it's the least problematic of the three in the sense of replacing, theoretically. But let's talk about books. I have a pile of books here next to me, plus there's a bunch of physical books that I've been reading, plus there's a pile of books that I do not have physically in my hand at the moment. Oh, okay. So Faison has tried to is trying to read the first trilogy of the Farseer, or the Elderlings universe, Assassin's Apprentice is fun. And then my boy Fitz just gets... My boy Fitz. Doing my first memory reread of the year in anticipation of plot twists. Yes. Oh, Robin... For those of you who don't know, spoiler warning, Robin Hobb predates the classification of grimdark, but only in the sense that the only other people who were doing grimdark at the time was Glenn Cook and basically like full-on war, military history, military fantasy. But Robin Hobb is like, let me carve your heart out with a spork and then feed it to you. And people are like, oh, I got into grimdark from James Abercrombie. I'm like, have you read Robin Hobb? have you read that? Okay, well, come back when you are okay. Okay. Yes, and I saw that post you posted, Faison, about the plot twists. Plot Twist is a podcast. And they're doing an episode with Jim Butcher and specifically talking about the Vorkasian saga, and a particular volume in the Vorkasian. And Faye and I are both really big fans of Lois McMaster's Behold in general, and also specifically the Vorkasian. I'm almost ready to do a reread. I think I'm ready up to do a reread. I've been rereading stuff. I mean, like, I have a giant pile. I have a pile of new stuff, and then I have a pile of stuff that I've been rereading because I had a lot of time. Yeah, also, content warning for Robin Hobb. Content warning for Robin Hobb. The dogs are not okay. The dogs are not okay. That's your answer. Robin Hobb is how the Farseer first book in the Farseer trilogy is Assassin's Apprentice, and it's the first. So we can talk about Robin Hobb. I'm okay with talking about Robin Hobb. So the first book is the Assassin's Apprentice, which is basically, hi, Fitz is. And she uses this correctly. So Fitz, F-I-T-Z, in Gaelic, and then was appropriated kind of by the English, but is mostly used in Gaelic, Gaelic Irish, and a little bit by the Scots, to mean bastard son of, illegitimate child thereof. Fitz is the main character of the first trilogy. Well, technically he's main character of more than one trilogy, but he's the main character of the first trilogy of the Elderlings saga, which is just massive. Massive, massive, massive. But the first book starts with Fitz, who is the son of literally his father's name is Chivalry Farseer. Right? Like, you're like, this dude is not okay. And the answer is, that is true. Chivalry Farseer is not okay for many, many reasons. But, yes, in a faraway land where members of the royal family are named for the virtues they embody, one young boy is a walking enigma. Yeah, his name is Fitz. He's called a bastard. His father's name is Chivalry. And, I have opinions about Chivalry Farseer. There are other characters in that book I have more opinions on, but Chivalry's... Chivalry is fucked up. I have opinions about him. But he basically is like, oh, well, my illegitimate son is just kind of hanging around and acting as a scullery, whatever. I'm going to give him to our royal assassin as an apprentice. Here! What? The kid is like, I forget how old he is in the book. I think he's like, starts at like 12. And the first book is rough. Like, Assassin's Apprentice is full on rough. It is difficult because there are parts of that book where you're like, fuckwit. And by that I mean the character wit, or the wit, which is the magic system, kind of. And it's... There are things that come out in the other portions of the Elderling saga that just become very complicated. But the Assassin's Apprentice is the first in the Farseer trilogy, and then there's a whole rest of the world that Robin Hobb has written in for decades. She is like Mercedes Lackey in that there are definite, like, main trilogies you can read, but you can jump into the you can kind of jump into the Elderling saga and Elderling's universe at different points and get different perspectives, but I always recommend people know that the Farseer trilogy and the Live Ships trilogy are not the same. Not the same. Like, if you start with the Live Ships and you're getting into, like, Live Ships, which is some of the most interesting magic systems in the world, full on. Love me Robin Hobb and the Live Ships. But if you start with that, and then you go to the Farseer trilogy, Farseer is a hell of a lot darker. It is. One of these things is not like the other. It's very much, I have heard people be like, oh my god, I loved the Farseer, I loved the Live Ships, let me read the rest of Robin Hobb, and then they pick up Farseer and they're like, what the hell is this? I was not prepared for it. Yeah. I like preparing people. somewhat for that series. Now I'm going back scrolling through notes. But yes, I need to go listen to that Chetaganda episode you mentioned face on. Catherine Addison is one. I loved the Goblin Emperor. I loved the two. I've read the two side stories about our sweet little necromantic priest and his opera composer lover. That are mysteries, and the third one's coming out this year, so I'm really happy. Darker is complicated. Yeah, it's sold, and the rest of the Farseer trilogy it gets better, I guess, kind of. It's different. But yes, I really love Catherine Addison. I'm definitely gonna have to check out the Plot Trysts podcast. Thank you for that recommendation. And welcome in, Krellin. I see you here. I see you ready to join us on our discussion of books. So first things first, let's talk about books I did read since the last time we talked, since the last time we chatted. First let's talk about the first of the April read-alongs that we read, which was A Marvelous Light by Freya Marske, Marske. I do not know how she pronounces her name. This was a delight. This was a simple delight. I enjoyed every minute of this. I loved this Edwardian, what's the word I'm looking for? Edwardian mystery, romance, and the very obvious, like, magical realism in this book. This book does magical realism very, very well. I loved the magic system in this world. I loved how it was the world is thought out. Each of the characters are great. Also, it's hella gay. These two wonderful gentlemen fall in love. These two wonderful gentlemen fall in love. I am going immediately to get the sequel. I have to when I go to the library, probably Monday. I'm going to get the sequel because it's on hold. It just came in, which is so there's a trilogy, Volume 1, very hella gay, with the Sir Robin Blythe, technically Sir Robert Blythe Jr., but Robin is what he's called, and is the and Edwin Coursey. So Sir Robin, or Robin Blythe, is this, he's 20, in his 20s, he picks up a job in ministry service, and through shenaniganry, mostly because his person in the Home Office really hated his parents and decided that he's going to take it out on Robin, forces him into an open position in the Home Office that the superior doesn't know, but everybody else knows is supposed to be this diplomatic position between the regular government and the magical side of the government in England. And Robin has no idea about magic before he gets this job. And Edwin Coursey, who is our sweet cinnamon roll of a nerd who just struggles with, is a nerdy wizard, and it struggles with communication and is not the popular kid in school, has to be the one to explain what magic is. And then, oh yeah, Robin ends up cursed. So now we have to find out who cursed him, how we're going to fix it. And in the same way, and along the way, the two of them fall in love. And there's only a little bit of murder, but they fall in love and it's so cute. And then I loved Robin. I loved Edwin. Edwin is a sweet cinnamon roll of a wizard in this little shenaniganry. And Robin's like, yes, I went to Eton and I went to Cambridge, and, you know, I got a degree, but, you know, I did things like rowing and rugby and, you know, all of those things that you know you're supposed to do. And Edwin's like, I was a nerd. I lived in the library. Robin's like, let me punch your older brother because he's being a dick. Okay, maybe. He's great. And it's not even Pride and Prejudice or Sense and Sensibility. This reads very much like like the author does a fabulous job of using language and language and syntax and writing style as if it is an Edwardian book. So think more along very early Agatha Christie, right? Like that kind of level of well, a little bit earlier, maybe late Sherlock Holmes, very kind of stylized writing, very thought out. Let's go to have a weekend in the country. Let's take the train out to the country and, you know, meet, you know, various people. All of these kind of things. And it's very interesting because one of the characters who you absolutely will fall in love with, and I really want to know more about, is Robin's. She's called the typist because at the time that was her title, but she's really like the secretary and runner of this office. She is half Indian, and her father is English, is an English colonel, and her mother is an Indian. From, I believe she's Rajasthani. Is she Rajasthan? I think she's Rajasthan specifically. From as part of the empire, and she is such a kick, and I love her dearly, and I want to know more about her. And then there's an entire scene in this book. This is basically, again, magical realism, so it's set in specifically, what is the year? Does it mention the year? It doesn't specifically mention a year, I don't think. Oh yes, I love this. This is Robin's title, by the way. Assistant in the Office of Special Domestic Affairs and Complaints. Yes. In His Majesty's Secret Service. I can't find, there's no specific date, and I think it's like very early Edwardian. It's not specific about it. And they do address things like the period issues with the period homophobia, but also discussions of, you know, the Oscar Wilde trial, and things like that. You know, so early 1910, or no later than 19, no, not later than 1910, before World War One, I believe, or is it after World War One? I don't. No, it is after the war because they meet a character who has specific issues about the war. So it's right after World War One, right? So 1918, 1919. And it's a very particular character that they meet that has issues stemming from the war and things that came out of that, and there's a lot of things that come from that. But Robin has very particular, yeah, the Oscar Wilde trial was 1895. This is set 1910. So people are talking about it. And they talk about concerns, both Edwin and Robin, or, you know, talk about how they deal with their relationship like that. But one of the scenes, and this is, I'm going to put the spoiler tag up for, spoilers, all right? Spoiler for this section. So the scene is Robin finds out that Edwin is in trouble. They need to go rescue Edwin, but he needs to get into the magical side of the government to do so. So he needs to talk to his typist, whose name I'm blanking on at the moment, and I should know better because she is great. Miss Morrissey. Adelaide Harita Morrissey. That is her name. And she is just great. But her sister, her twin sister, works in the government on the magical side, right? And so Robin is there, and they're like, well, we need to get into this, you know, special space that we're not supposed to be able to get into, but your sister has access and she'll get us in. And he's like, oh, I feel like, you know, I can't just let you in. You have to give me something to do. And he goes, well, would it help? He goes, I feel so intimidated by this tall, strapping white man who's trying to intimidate me. And Robin's like, would it help if I raise my voice? Yes, please do. It'll be a little bit loud here. or the line that they have about, like, oh yes, and women can't bear to do strong magics. And Robin's like, do you need me to... What? Okay. Robin is a sweet, sweet early feminist, and God bless him for that. It's just also epically hilarious. It is joy of joys. Well written, well thought out. The characters are great. The story is entertaining, and it's built really well to introduce you to, this is the first part of this trilogy that's going to span, you know, there are three books in the series. All of them are now out. A Marvelous Light is volume 1, and then the next, come here, Storygraph. Tell me what my... So book 2 is The Restless Truth. And that is the sapphic romance book of the trilogy. And then book 3 is The Power Unbound, which came out last year. So, and book 2 has to deal, one of the main characters in book 2 is Robin's younger sister, who's getting involved in the suffragette movement. Here she's here for women's votes. And then so she's the main character, and then the characters in the third book, one of whom you'll meet in book 2, and the other you get is a side character in book 1. So I can't wait to find So actually, Coldrake, it's actually really kind of good social commentary about female discrimination at the time period. And you're like, there's that, but there's also the fact that Adelaide and her sister Kitty are both half Indian. And they look it, right? Like, they're not white. So there's that side aspect to prejudice as well. And then it is so well written. The mystery is pretty good. I liked the way the development of things. There are some plot points that you can kind of see coming if you read a lot because you recognize genre conventions and stuff. But the actual story itself is so well written that it doesn't really matter. And firmly recommend. I'm going to get book 2 tomorrow, and will enjoy reading book 2 and 3, probably. I'm going to read book 2 and 3. I know the library has 2. I have to find out if they have book 3 yet. So, Marvelous Light by Freya Marske, I think. We'll go with that. Next up on the list of books is one that I really, really wanted to like. Oh yeah, by the way, content warning for romance novel level sex scenes. It's not a smut book, but and next is a book that I wanted to like. And, like, on paper, I should have liked. But I have to be honest, I was not a fan of The Book That Wouldn't Burn. Mark Lawrence, The Book That Wouldn't Burn, has a lot of very interesting components. That I think... So I'll give you the blurb that's in the, fly jacket, right? The boy has lived... Two strangers find themselves connected by a vast and mysterious library containing many wonders and still more secrets in this powerfully moving first book in a new series from the international best-selling author of Red Sister and The Prince of Thorns. The boy has lived his whole life trapped within a book-choked chamber older than empires and larger than cities. The girl has spent hers in a tiny settlement out on the dust, where nightmares stalk and no one goes. The world has never even noticed them. That's about to change. Their stories spiral around each other across worlds and time. This is the tale of truth and lies, and hearts and the blurring of one into another. A journey on which knowledge erodes certainty, and on which, though the pen might be mightier than the sword, blood will be spilled and cities burned. So, I wanted to like this. On paper, this should be really good. I think the biggest problem with this book is I did not enjoy the writing style. Someone else might really enjoy this book. Like, this is not a hate on this book. I don't think this book is poorly written. I don't think it has, like, grammatical errors or things like that. I think that this book was a slog for me to read and keep things track of who is doing what. I also felt like a lot of the characterization was... So you meet the main like, the first time you meet the main characters, they're young. Well, let me phrase that. She's young. He's been eaten by a machine that has spit him out millennia or decades or centuries later, he's not sure, into a library with magical powers that and memories of what happened when he was in the machine, but nobody really remembers. And he's got, like, a bunch of other people with him in this library who all have bigger, more powerful magical powers than he does. And he's got books, and that's about it. And she's 8. Right? Like, this book starts with the main character, one of the main characters, and you're following her, and she's 8. And she's doing things that an 8-year-old theoretically would have done within this world, but never sounds like a child. Everybody in this book, even when they're a child, reads like an adult. And sounds like an adult. And even the choices that are made, even when they're childish, are being justified in an adult manner. And I think for me that was just, I didn't like, that's not true. I liked 2 of the people in the library who were not the main characters. And the boy in the library was okay. I kind of wanted to like him. I didn't hate him. I hated her. Oh god, what's her name? This tells you how much Livira, Livira, right? That is literally an Evar. Evar is the boy, and Livira is a girl, and you're just like, I was a precocious child, but even this level of just... And the viewpoint flip is very awkward. Like, and I think part of that is the way in which this book is edited and structured, because chapters begin in the middle of a page, or, you know, they're kind of like run-on chapters, or there's page breaks that are certain places that you're think like, this is supposed to be important, but then it's not. And then you get into the 2 of them interacting in the library, which the library itself is kind of interesting, but I don't think we spend, and this might be an issue where like maybe the sequel is going to be a little bit better, but I think we spend a lot of time creating a mystery around the library and the machine in the library, but we don't actually feel like the library is real, which is really awkward because so much of it is spent in the library. Yeah, it's very obvious that this is a case where the structure and the editing was designed to further the writing of the story, and times I like that. Like when I read R.J. Barker's Gods of the Weirdwood, there would be set points where that kind of happened, and, you know, this very, very short, like, 1-paragraph chapters or something like that, but that was used in a much better, I think, literary manner. I think Mark Lawrence is very much a good writer, but it's very awkward to follow his writing structure. And, like, you know me, I love a good, chunky, complex world-building book. And this was not for me. This one was not for me. This is not a bad book. I want to stress this. This is not a bad book. I think a lot of people would really enjoy this book. I know that a lot of people have put it on, like, their best of 2023, and the sequel, they came out, like, in this next, you know, that came out this year, is supposed to, you know, is supposed to be really, really good. Everybody's really into it, and a lot of people who don't read fantasy, who only read, like, literary fiction, are really recommending this, and I think that might be a part of it, is, like, this reads like it wanted to be a literary fiction while straddling a line between genre fiction, and you're not sure if it's supposed to be sci-fi or fantasy or sci-fantasy kind of genre fiction, and you're like, alright, this book just wasn't for me. Oh yeah, Mark Lawrence is a very prolific writer. He's written a large number of things, and things that I've read. None of them are, like, really big, great fans of, but that doesn't mean anything. It just, like The Broken Empire I did kind of like. I liked parts of Prince of Thorns and King of Thorns. I really liked Emperor of Thorns, but I didn't think the landing stuck. Red Queen's War, I didn't read, but the Book of the Ancestor, Red Sister, Grey Sister, and Holy Sister, I did read. They were okay. They're just kind of, like, middle of the road for me. This, I think, was just... not, and I think that's what it is. This book was not for me, and that's okay. And sometimes there's a book out there that's just not for you, and so I recommend that people try it and see what they think. I struggled with this as a content, just as the getting immersed in this, like, and feeling like I was in this world. And even when I'm jumping back and forth between, like, Livera and Evar's viewpoint, and you're getting into descriptions of the library, you still feel like there's, awkward moments of just things that are going on. No, I am not going to burn this book. I do not burn books at all. Hey, Sly, welcome in. I know that joke, but this one wasn't for me. Try it if you want. I think that I've read other Mark Lawrence that I enjoyed better. Some people might really enjoy this. Not mine. Next. That's the it wouldn't burn anyway. Exactly. Well, I don't know. We don't get to 450 Fahrenheit 451. I'm going to end with that pile of stuff because of the time. Okay, so last time we talked about Isabel Ibanez, that author. She is Bolivian American, and I had read What the River Knows, which is the first in a duology set in the 1860s. Oh yeah, I said it correctly. Woohoo! Thank you, Sly, for helping me with that. So I read the What the River Knows, which is the first in a duology set in the 1860s, where an Argentine young heiress, when she finds out that her parents have died, goes to Cairo to find out how they died. And I loved the magical realism in that book, and I loved the beginning of the romance in that book, and that last fucking paragraph, I just screamed and threw it across the room. But I can't wait for the part 2 that just came out, and I'm gonna go read it, and I'll enjoy it, and I probably will scream some more. However, I also found out about her standalone, which is Together We Burn. My library didn't have it, so I went ahead and ordered it from bookshop.org, and it is a standalone, and I'm going to sell you on this book in three steps. Step number 1, flamenco dancing, dragon matadors, and the following opening sentence. Okay? The following opening sentence. My mother died screaming my name. Okay? Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Yes, yes. Yes, yes, yes. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. All the yes. Dragon matadors are a thing. Dragons are also used well. You kind of go back and forth in perspective, and I do like one of the things that she puts in these books is that you get the perspective from, I mean, these are young adult kind of fantasy romance novels, a little more fantasy than romance, a little bit more fantasy mystery than romance, but there is romance. So these are young adult fantasy novels. And I do love that they have the dual POV for both the female main character and the male main character. And it leads to some very interesting understanding. I mean, I love it. Also, magical flamenco dancing. I just need to say that. And I appreciated this book a lot. And I loved the ending kind of this book. This is a book where this is a standalone, but if you give me more of it, I'll be very happy, right? Like more Dragonatore, you know, matadors of dragons. More Arturo and oh god, what's her name? Zarella. Zarella. She's a flamenco dancer, and it is absolutely wonderful. And Arturo is complicated in the best way, because you're like, on one hand, he's a wealthy lordling kind of character, but on the other, there's a lot more going on underneath, and the interesting ways that you can kind of build off of each other. They build off of each other is really great. The way in which they how to phrase it, the way they build their relationship and start to kind of concentrate on each other, and the way both characters grow through the book, really, really well done. Also, I loved the way the magic in this world worked, because there isn't really a lot of it. It's mostly about the dragons, and you know, fire. There's a lot of fire in this book, in the best way. I think that this book is well written, enjoyable, fun. It's a very interesting kind of fantasy Spain that you're in. It's very witty. Like, I love a lot of the lines that the characters have in here, and you can I love the fact that I'm gonna keep messing up the pronunciation of her name. Zarella is one of those characters who is a complex female character. She's doing what she can to work towards what she wants, and has to have strength in this kind of very male-dominated field. But she is also a flamenco dancer, right? Like, full-on, very feminine portrayed qualities a lot. Arturo is a very interesting and complex character. I think the story really flows very well. 10 out of 10. Will recommend. Definitely think that this is one that people will like. And it's a good kind of, and it's the right kind of length for this kind of story, right? Like, it's 350 pages, and that includes the prologue and the epilogue. And so that's the right kind of length for a book like this, where it's very much a concrete story. It's a technically standalone. There could be more in this world building, but I think the story of Zarella and Arturo wraps up in a way that's satisfying, right? Like, and I want to make sure that that's understood, is like, yeah, they have a quote-unquote happy ending, but it's not so much about the happy ending as it is a satisfying ending. And I am always here. Always will take a satisfying ending more than. It is, and when it comes to world building, it's a little bit more obviously fantasy, because she's using, you know, it's not obviously Spain as we know it. She uses she calls it Hispalia, which is close, but it's not Hispania. And she uses, very obviously, Spanish, but it's a little bit more fantasy than what the river knows. What the river knows is very obviously magical realism, right? Like, you're just in this world that has all the same kind of things that we had in the 1860s, but there was at one point in history the ability to do magic, and now all that's left of that are these artifacts, like physical artifacts that people can use that had like magic spells on them, but even that is waning. This is alternate fantasy world Spain. So just a little bit off, right? Like, just not quite Spain as you know it, and just a little bit off. Also, dragon matadors. Just still one of the greatest things in the world. Also, the fact that one of the things that you have in the beginning of this book is a breakdown of the dragons, of the different types of dragons. Culebra, 4 legs, resembles a serpent, small wings, flies short distance, stays close to the ground, emerald scales, shoots poisonous liquid. Lagarto, swimmer dragon, drowns victims before devouring, shimmery, iridescent scales, sold as jewelry, found along the coast of Valentia. Rancio, golden scales, red irises, emits a gas that can rot whatever it touches. Like, oh yes, let's have a breakdown of the world of the types of dragons in this world. The guilds of Hispalia. There's a Magic's Guild, there's the Dragonadores Guild, there's the Herbalist Guild, the Merchants Guild, the Textiles Guild, Butchers, Hunters, Farmers, the Arts, the writers, printers, and publishers, the sailors, the military, and then, oh yes, the open to the general public. So it's like nice little bestiary in the front, nice little it's like, it's cute, it's well done, and all of it is relevant, right? Like, it becomes well thought out world building that is unique and funny. Like, there are lines in this book that made me laugh out loud. Like, full on laugh out loud. Most of them came out of Arturo's mouth. That boy is snarky. Are they the dragons that are matadors, or matadors that face dragons? No, the Dragonatores are matadors that face dragons. And the main character's father is one of the most famous in the country. They are kind of... they're not overfed, chonky ones, but they're still kind of fun, and like this line, okay? This is not a spoiler line, but I'm going to put the spoiler tag up anyway. This is not a plot spoiler line, because I'm only going to say this one sentence. We argue about how many wands to bring, and at last settle on 3 each. Right? Like, we're having an argument about wands. Or, where is it? Oh yes. This conversation. Okay, so, Arturo is talking to Zorella. There was nothing you could have done, he said softly, but you were brave all the same. I narrow my gaze, sure I've missed the insult hidden between his words. And we're like, no, he's not insulting you. He's just not good at giving you compliments. Because he's Arturo. It is, good. It is quite enjoyable. I recommend reading this. And I want more people to read it so I know what they think. I need more people to talk about this book. Okay. how we doing? How's life going? What are we thinking about at the moment? Excuse me. I'm sorry, what? So, my friends, who I love dearly, have sent me a link. I am... Oh, good lord. That apparently there is an official Chuck Tingle role-playing game. Yep. Yep. Okay. Moving on. Moving on. Face it. Yeah. Uh-huh. I had to be shared. That had to be shared with me, so I had to share it with all of you. There's never a bad time to have Leonard Skinnerd in your head, Krellin. Faye says, I had to take a break from Grimstar after Farseer. That's fair. And read the Forever Fantasy Online trilogy, which is an isekai story about a brother and sister, among others, who become their characters in a VR MMO. Oh, yeah. There you go. So, next up, and because it's oddly appropriate to talk about these now, because it is Asian American and Pacific Islanders Heritage Month, and the sequel to this duology has just come out, so I can go read it. The part 2 of this duology has just come out, so I can go read part 2 and be very, very excited. This is Strike the Zither by Joan H.E. And I'm going to say this, her name is in Chinese, and I have not heard it said, which is something I need to do, because it's really important, because, look, the modulated tone in Mandarin is really important, and I don't have that with just the written word, so I don't know how she pronounces her last name. I should go find that out. But Strike the Zither, okay, and then its sequel, which is Sound the Gong. Also, I want to take a moment to just showcase some of the beautiful art in this book. Look at that character art, right? Like, how can you not love that character art? Also, we have a map. We have a map. Really, really good. So, look, I know that if you mispronounce a certain word in Mandarin Chinese, it can go from being thank you to being shit. So, I make sure I hear it before I try and say it. It's a thing, Sly. But Strike the Zither is part 1, and then Sound the Gong is part 2. And if you enjoy Chinese history, if you enjoy Chinese novels, if you enjoy watching historical C-dramas, you will love this book. This duology is a Rule 63 Romance of the Three Kingdoms. Okay? I want you to understand this. This book is a Rule 63 Romance of the Three Kingdoms. It's also a Jinja fantasy. So there's that. Wow, as I pull my thing off my ear. Krellin, Rule 63 is the gender flip. So they take a bunch of the character, actually one whole faction Actually, she takes a bunch of the main characters in the Romance of the Three Kingdoms and changes them to female characters. Jimbo, Jingong, Jinren, whole bunches of other characters in here that are, if you know anything about the Romance of the Three Kingdoms, this book is really, really great for that. So, Carl Drake, this is, Romance of the Three Kingdoms is one of the 4 great novels of Chinese literature. Sometimes 3, sometimes referred to as 3, sometimes referred to as 4, depending on the timeline and whatever. But Romance of the Three Kingdoms, The Water Margins, oh god, what's the other one? Oh, the Red Room. The Red Room. Are the 3 big ones that are nominally based on history, but they're fictional depictings of things that happened during a warring states period in Chinese history. And this particular setup is the two of the characters in that book, one of whom gets gender flipped to being a girl. A lot of the women are in power in this book, but the portion of the Romance of the Three Kingdoms, because the Romance of the Three Kingdoms is like, and Journey into the West, there's the 4th book, there's the 4th one. Journey into the West is number 4. But Romance of the Three Kingdoms includes a bunch of different sections. It's like War and Peace and Crime and Punishment. There's a lot going on. There's a shit ton going on in Romance of the Three Kingdoms. It's a political thriller that spans decades. But a portion of the book specifically deals with the military strategists and spy masters for 2 of the 3 kingdoms that are involved in this 3-way battle for the title of emperor, and focuses in on them. So Strike the Zither and Sound the Gong focus on Zephyr and Crow, and Zephyr is in this book as a woman and Crow is a guy, but and this focuses very much on them trying to help their own political factions while jointly trying to defeat a 3rd political faction, and both trying to outwit each other. And unfortunately, there's a romance for them. And here's where I put a spoiler that the author has given you for the second part of this duology. This is about Romance of the Three Kingdoms. There is not a happy ending. Okay? There isn't. There is not a happy ending to this duology. This author has released, now that Sound the Gong is out, a, like, novella version chapter where it is the alternate world, or, you know, in another life, they could have had a happy ending, but in this one they don't get it. So the novella she released is in that other life, getting them a happy ending. Okay, that tells you everything you need to know about how good this, well, not how good this is, but what the ending of this is going to not be for people who don't like happy endings. And if you've read the Romance of the Three Kingdoms, or if you've seen any C-dramas that are based on the Romance of the Three Kingdoms, there's so much going on in this book that it's like, oh yeah, the Romance of the Three Kingdoms is public domain, so this doesn't count as fan fiction. But you took that concept of gender flipping certain characters and then added fantasy Xinjia elements, and ran with it in the best possible way. And, like, God, I love Crow. Zephyr is great, but Crow is my favorite character. And I know, because I know who Crow is based on, I know the ending of what's going to happen at the end of Sound the Gong, even if I haven't read it yet. I know what's going to happen. But this is really good. Again, young adult novel, but it's really well written, really well thought out, really well approached. It's a great intro for getting people who are young adult into the concept of the source material, getting them maybe to be intrigued by the Romance of the Three Kingdoms or Chinese literature in general, and maybe getting them to go pick up that kind of novel that they may not have picked up forever. I think that this is a really great introduction. And as the author says, this book was originally, when she originally gave it to the editor, it was one of those books where the editor divided it in two and gave you book 1 and book 2. There's like a concrete ending in this, right? This has an ending to the story for this book. It's not great, but it definitely has one. Hey, Hawkeye, welcome in. Welcome in, Hawkeye. Thank you for the treats. So like there is a definitive, there is an ending or a end point in this book. But if you can get both of them at the same time, now that book 2 is out, and read and like binge read them all the way through, apparently that's even better. I'm going to actually go buy this, by the way. Now that I've read the book fund for the library, I'm going to go buy both of them, so I have them and support the author, because I do that. I do enjoy supporting the authors, particularly for something like this. But if you've read The Romance of the Three Kingdoms, there are so many little Easter egg moments or like references that you can find in the book. I do think it's, if you haven't read Romance of the Three Kingdoms, you will really understand everything. There's nothing that would be, you don't have to have read Romance of the Three Kingdoms to understand this book. I think it's a really great introduction. I think it will be really great for people to pick it up and go, yes, I want to read this. Oh, this is really good. Maybe I'll go read the original source material. And that's always a good thing. I think that's always a good thing. But I discovered that I need water because I've been talking for over an hour. And I think this is a good point to take a break so I can go get some water. We can all stretch for fresh bio, and I'll be back in like 8 minutes. But we'll see y'all in a minute, everybody. Hey everybody, welcome back. I'm, again, your friendly neighborhood Prax. Welcome to the channel. We're talking books. I had to go get some more water. But I hope you were stretched, you refreshed, you bioed, you did all of the important stuff. We ended off talking about Strike the Zither, and yes, all of the yes. I am here for Zephyr and Crow. I am here for their dueling wits. I am here for the complicated found family that goes through the whole book. I love all of the references to Romance of the Three Kingdoms, but I think this is a great kind of introduction to that book, and that yes, and now I have to go find the sequel. Or go get the sequel. Actually, I'm probably gonna go do that on Monday and go to Barnes & Noble and be like, hi, I have a list. I have a little list that I need to check things off on. And now we come to the pile of books that I don't have physical copies with me of, because of a variety of reasons. Either I had to return them to the library, or I read them as ebooks. Mostly I read these, I just had to return them to the library. I read ebooks on occasion. Sometimes it's easier, sometimes it's not. It really, I find physical copies when I can is much better, but you know, I also recognize that sometimes you can't always get a physical copy. But I am currently doing, because I needed, last month I decided I needed the mental, I just needed the mental comfort of a reread. So last time we talked, I had reread book 1 of David Weber's Oath of Swords. I have also recently reread the sequel, book 2, which is War God's Own, which is an interesting kind of sequel, and it's what happens when the lone paladin discovers, like, there's an entire, backup that he's never expected, and all of the rest of his gods, order is out there, and he's like, well, shit, I have to deal with these people now, and then go back to my family and explain to them why I broke the hostage agreement for a girl that was really important to do. Oh yeah, and occasionally kill a demon. Because the Lay of Basil Bloody Hand must be enjoyed. And the shenaniganry and chaos that he creates that's why his best friend is a bard. But not really. Poor Brandark. He is. I love me Basil and Brandark. They are greatest. They deserve all the love. But yeah, so I've been doing a slow kind of reread of that series again. David Weber, that's David Weber's, War Gods. The War God's Own, which does a much better job, I think, in the cover of highlighting the, difference, shall we say, between Basil and normal people. Let me show you. Let me. That's not gonna work. Let's try. Come here, Bane. Bane, you have to have a better copy. The War God's Own. Here we go. View larger image. Can I... Boop. Mm-mm. Okay. Here. Okay. There we go. Okay. Here, let's show you this image. There you go. That's a lot better seen. You can see, here's Dark, here's Basil, and here are normal humans. These are, and our favorite wizard with a funny hat. Who, you're like, what? But yes, in the snow, fighting with a big old sword because giants. But yes. I can do an ebook on occasion. My problem with the audiobooks is I can't really read them. It becomes a struggle for me to concentrate on them. Look, he's quasi-immortal. He's a complicated character. I love him. But yes, Basil is great. But going back to the chat for a moment, Coldrake asks, if you had a chance, is there a Mercedes book or arc you would recommend? The answer is yes. I have a lot of them. But Coldrake, I think I think there are two really good points of entry to, I'm assuming you're talking about Mercedes Lackey's Valdemar in particular. One of the things about the Valdemar series is it is broken into a bunch of different different series in and of themselves that you can start as different points of jumping in. And I think, and they kind of like, you can go back and forth because there are characters that start in one series and then, can kind of go to show up in this other kind of trilogy kind of series. So if you want to start, and like, you have the founding, like, the whole thing with Valdemar is, Valdemar is a kingdom, and there is a timeline that spans centuries, and like, each of the little trilogies are like within points on this timeline of different points of the Valdemar's history. I like to encourage people, there are like two points of entry that I think are really good, at least to kind of like get a good understanding of the books or the world, really. And that is the Last Herald Mage series, which is Magic's Pawn, Magic's Promise, Magic's Price, which is probably, I think, the earliest in the chronological, like the first, the Last Herald Mage series is the first trilogy that Mercedes Lackey wrote for Valdemar, right? It's the like beginning of the world. But the other point of entry, if you want to go later, well, like, you jump around in the timeline anyways, a really good, in my point of view, like, duology that kind of, technically it's a trilogy, but that's really only because the third book, which was technically the third book in the trilogy, was published first, but it was published as a standalone, and I really treat it as a standalone. But there's a duology called Exiles of Valdemar, Exile's Honor and Exile's Valor. And Exile's Honor, Albrecht is just great. You get to see an outsider's perspective about how Valdemar is put together and Albrecht has very definitive opinions about things, and you're just like, sometimes what's happening is really great, and sometimes it's really takes an outsider to point out to you that even though you're believe that your society is perfect, there's maybe problems. And Albrecht is one of my favorite characters in the entire Valdemar universe. I'm also a big fan of Kerwin. And the Owl's Mage trilogy. Owl's Mage trilogy is later in the timeline. Owl Flight, Owl Sight, Owl Night, they're technically not part of Valdemar. They're not, well, let me rephrase that. They're not set in the kingdom of Valdemar. They're set in one of the other nations along the borders with Valdemar. So it's a little bit different. And instead of having all of the Valdemar books involve animal companions. Most commonly, the horses, but the Owl's trilogy deals with people who hunt with owls. It's great. So yeah, there are a bunch of different places you can start in Mercedes Lackey. Welcome in. So yeah, there are a bunch of different places you can start with Mercedes Lackey. I like starting with either Exile's Honor or the Owl Flight trilogy. But, different people have different perspectives on what they like. And how much they're really wanting to spend. But that's my opinion on Valdemar. Valdemar is just pick one of the trilogies and go with it. And then kind of have fun jumping around in the timeline. As the Valdemar wiki says, the books span approximately 3,000 years of history. And it becomes complicated because of that. But other things that I read after I finished, that I don't have physical copies of me with, so I went ahead, and now that it is has an official, all of the books have official translations that are publicly available, and you can go to your bookstore and buy or order online. I read through all of Grandmaster of Demonic Cultivation, Maldozushi, by Mojing Tongju. You would know it is either Grandmaster of Demonic Cultivation, or if you watch the Netflix series Untamed. But it was based on a web novel by it's a danmai, by a Chinese author. And it was a novel written in China. And now that they have an official translation for it, you can go and, it's been published as a manhwa, you can find an animated version of it. There's so many versions of it. But the actual book itself was published. You can now get actual official translations that are available in the United States. It looks so pretty. But there are 5 volumes of it, and I have now read through all 5 volumes to read the whole official translation. But this is volume 1. Volume 1. Volume 2. These poor boys and their very tragic love story. Also, mystery reincarnation, fighting demons, tragedy of your own making, giant war, ending up on the wrong side. Just, these poor boys. These poor boys. It is a great and enjoyable series. Or technically it's only one novel, but it's published in the US in different volumes. There are 5 volumes. Also, you know, possession, spirit bunnies, awkward flirting, fighting with swords against hordes of undead. Using the dark side of the force for good things. And then the final volume 5. The complicated ending, brothers, family, just all of the stuff in this book. And as it is Asian American and Pacific Islanders History Month, I recommend reading diversely. That's why I recommended reading Strike the Zither and Sound the Gong. I also recommend The Grand Master, for MXTX is what she is known as across in non-Mandarin speaking countries. I've read The Grand Master's Demonic Cultivation. I really enjoyed it. I think it is a really well-written book. And I do recommend, if you can, because now that it was published in like volumes, right? But it is one book, and if you can, I would just get all of them, you know, get them from the library, get them however you want to get them, but read them all at once, as, you know, just kind of read it all at once, kind of go. So, Color of Magic by Terry Pratchett. That's a good one. I enjoy it. But, what is this special edition? Oh, it's the one with the sticker pack. But if you've seen the TV series The Untamed, you can find it on Netflix and Viki and a whole bunch of other things. It is a very... Okay, so first of all, I'm about to say words and you're going to look at me like I'm a crazy person, but The Untamed is a truncated version of the it was an adaptation of this book, and it was an adaptation of this book where they did cut a lot of things that happen in this book. Like, the major plot points are all there, but there's like so much else that goes on in this book, and you're like, but this TV series is 66 episodes. The book is just juicier. The book is juicier. Also, you have to remember that the TV series, but if you watch the TV series, you'll get a very good understanding of what the book is, and it is actually really kind of like a really, really good adaptation. You just have to be prepared for the fact that the book is a danmai, which is about a romantic relationship between two men. And in this case, it's a cultivation novel, which is basically based on a combination of Taoism and like martial arts theory and Confucianism and whole bunches of things that kind of create, you know, you through your martial training and dedication, you can, you know, manifest magical powers and do stuff. So, but the TV series The Untamed was made in and for a Chinese audience. So because of that, they had to walk a very fine line, because in China, the gay is illegal and depictions of it are not well liked. So In the TV series, they're just very good friends. You know? Versus in the book. In the book. Also, there is so much tragedy and plot, but the TV series is really good. You can also find the animated series online, and somehow the animated series gets away with more of the gay than the live action. But hey, maybe that's because Tencent doesn't have to do a bunch of the same things that for the animated series that the other things do. But so I read Grandmaster of Demonic Cultivation. The other one that I've started, I have not finished yet. I read volumes 1 through 3 of Heaven Official's Blessing, which is also by MXTX, and is a is also based on it's kind of like a fantasy novel in China. Heaven Official's Blessing is a little bit more like, how do you look at this pretty art. It's more heavily based on Confucian and ancient Chinese religion, and specifically this character who, for plot reasons, it's not really a spoiler, but for plot reasons, is dressed as the bride because he's investigating a thing. He is a male character. He presents as male, he identifies as male, he is... But it's a lot gayer. Like, this is the cover for Volume 4. Yep. All right there. But it has to do with a lot more of Chinese religion and the differences between a demon or ghost kind of general prince and a god, and how like good, moral, upstanding people can become gods through like reincarnation and all of these kind of things. So it's very much requires a little bit more understanding of like Chinese culture to kind of get some of the Easter eggs, but I think it's still a really enjoyable book even if you don't have that. It is also, you can find it as an animated series on, I think it's on Netflix still. Hold on, let me check. Netflix. Doop. Okay, Heaven's Official. Oh, they took it off of Netflix. Poopy. Untamed is still on Netflix, though. Untamed is still on Netflix. That's good. But, Official Blessing. Where can I watch it? Oh, it's on Crunchyroll. There we go. Is it on Crunchyroll? It is on Crunchyroll. Yay! Season 1 is on Crunchyroll. Hopefully they get Season 2, but... Oh no, Season 2 is out. Yay! Season 2 is out. Why did I miss that? Okay, well I need to go watch Season 2 of Heaven Official's Blessing. And, enjoy that. That's gonna be a thing I need to do. Because I've seen Season 1. But I have to wait because I have to finish the rest of the book. I have to finish the rest of this book. But, yeah. There are 8 volumes in Heaven Official's Blessing, and right, there are 8. Yes. Yes. It is a so, Heaven Official's Blessing has 8 volumes in the English translation. Grandmaster of Demonic Cultivation has 5. That tells you what you need to know about the length of these books. And I've only read half of Heaven Official's Blessing. But I am going to finish that. So I guess we're now into the what am I going to read next. Next up, I'm going to be reading... blanking on life. I'm going to get the rest of Heaven Official's Blessing. Read the rest of that. Qianguan Shifu, I believe is how the title is pronounced in Mandarin, but I've been wrong before. And I'm going to see about buying. I'm gonna buy a version of Strike the Zither, and I'm gonna get the copy of Sound the Gong. Read those 2. Finish Heaven Official's Blessing, and then I've got books coming because I pre-ordered them. And when I pre-order stuff, it's just little presents that come later, right? They're just little presents that come later. The present that's coming later is Joan Her. Oh, June Her, not Joan. Joan Hei, Jane, who's Chinese, and then June Her, H-U-R, who is Korean. And A Crane Among Wolves I pre-ordered, and it comes out the 14th, and it will be here the 14th. And can we just take a minute to look at this cover? Look at it. Look at it. I have been excited for this book for all year. I am so excited for this book. So, there's that. It is... Yes, this book is actually very intense. I should warn... This book comes with a really important contact warning. June Her writes historical fiction based in Korean history. And the last one that I read was The Red Palace, which was a bunch of murder mysteries and tied to the historical figure of a particular prince in Korea who may or may not have committed a bunch of murders. Let me phrase that. He did commit murder. He may or may not have committed the murders he was eventually technically not quite executed for. And may have been subject to a political assassination because the people in power thought he would be a problem after he became the current crown prince. But A Crane Among Wolves is specifically, as the author has mentioned many, many times before, focuses on the worst, and according to Korean history, the most cruel tyrant king ever to rule Korea. He is known for having kidnapped, historically, having kidnapped over 1,000 women and girls, and just like taking people off the street, banning literature, murdering, like literally one of the most hated people in Korean history. And this particular novel deals with a girl who lived, whose older sister becomes the king's prey, and she starts working with the king's brother to maybe start staging a coup. King Yonsan, is so what happened. So basically, what happens is that he's known historically that he is it's really kind of complicated. Early in his career, for like the first 9 years of his reign, he's considered like this really great king who does a lot of things that are going on. And then basically what is understood to have happened is that he found out about how his mother actually died. And basically discovers that his mother was executed and murdered, and because of that he that he wasn't actually, like, his biological mother wasn't actually his mother, and that he was raised by somebody else, and then, oh no, wait, he was his actual mother, and then he begins, like, a massive purge of the literary class, like, basically killing all of the, from what I understand, again, I've not studied this particular, and I've just, like, this is what I'm understanding, and I haven't actually done this. He basically starts a purge of, like, all of the literati class, which are all the upper class people who apparently conspired to get his mother convicted of a crime and therefore force her to be executed by drinking poison. And then basically goes on a suppression of free speech, learning, and kidnapping of women. And then he's deposed. And put his younger half-brother on the throne. But the book, A Crane Among Wolves, adds another brother and, you know, like, deviates from history. Like, this is historical fiction, so it's going to be a little bit different. But it's based on real-life history. And I am looking forward to that. And that book comes out May 14th. And I pre-ordered, so, you know, it's on its way. It's, you know, on its way. Right, I'm pretty sure. Okay. Why is the password not working for me to check my Barnes & Noble account so I can get my... Oh, whatever. I'll fight with it later. But yes, it is coming out on the 14th, and I pre-ordered, so it should be on its way and be delivered shortly, which is going to be very, very exciting for me. So I've got that I'm going to read this week. I will, the minute that book comes in, sit down and read it, and that will be it. Like, I hope I don't have to actually go to work that day, because my day will be reading. Actually, I do have to go to work. Oh well. I'll come in later, so I'll have the whole next day to read that book, and it won't take me long, because they're, like, young adult historical fiction mysteries, and they're very, very good and very, very emotional. And I read The Red Palace. Well, I mean, like, I read very quickly anyways, but I read The Red Palace in a couple hours, and I had to stop myself, because one of the things that June Her does, and I love June Her for this, so if you go on her website, if you go on her website, right, yay, you can get she's has a very interesting stuff on her books. So, like, she has the book, you can pre-order, you can look at reviews. I don't usually, there are ways to purchase. But then you have immersive reading. She believes in helping you be an immersive reader. So she's got a Pinterest board where she gives you all of, like, images, and not just, like, K-drama images and drawings and but also like historical images about things and how people would have dressed, or what the palace would have looked like, or what the palace layout was. All of these things, so you can look at this while you're reading the book, and then look at all of these maps so that you can understand where things are going, what's happening, the different image ranks and things that she references in the book. All of this, like, right? Like, this is an entire... Oh, I know what that's from, too. To help you get further into, like, imagining what's going on in the text. Yes, I have spoken about this author before. I spoke about this author when I read the other book that she wrote, Red Palace. But also, the reason why Red Palace I had to pause on is because she has a Spotify playlist. And the Spotify playlist for while you're reading the book is emotional. All of her books are very emotional when they come to the Spotify playlists, and you're just like, thanks. Gonna end with this. So, and it is... So I read The Red Palace. I haven't read The Force of the Stolen Girls or The Silence of Bones yet. Those are the next two I need to read. After I read, but having... reading The Red Palace, which is a a full-on murder mystery, and the two main characters, one is a nurse, and the other is an investigator becomes an investigator for the police force, because it's like a national exam level rank. But there's a lot of very violent description of the murders that happen in that book, which is fine. It's okay. And then you get into, like, listening to the emotional soundtrack at the same time, and you're like, oh, maybe I shouldn't read and listen to this late at night because I'm getting thriller vibes. I finished it the next day. It was fine. But yes, I'm a big, big fan of this author. I love I've been looking forward to this book since December. I can't wait for it. So yeah, it's Asian American and Pacific Islander History Month. I'm going to be reading Sound the Gong. I'm going to be finishing up Heaven Official's Blessing. I'm going to read Crane Among Wolves. And I also found out recently, here's one for you, the Library of Congress is doing a new thing where they are re-releasing pulp crime novels and republishing them, but at the same time they're also redoing them, re-adding in is that? No, it's not here. Did I read it? Oh yes, okay. Okay. So I love how they're like, well, your package will be delivered by 7 p.m. today. It's not been delivered yet. But the Library of Congress has started re-releasing these books, and I ordered 2 of them. And the 2 are The Metropolitan Opera Murders by Helen Trubel, which is part of the, what are they calling it? The Library of Congress Crime Classics collection. And so there's that one, and then the Canary murder case. So I got these two, like, 1920s pulp. And apparently the Canary murder case was a movie turned into a movie in 1929. So the book was released in 1927 and the movie is released in 1929. And so yay. Two of very early kind of pulpy novels, which you, I guess, technically could order on Amazon, but I ordered directly from the Library of Congress, and I feel better about that. You know, it's my thought here is that definitely would rather pay directly to the Library of Congress. But that, I think, is that for tonight. I have my list of reading for the next week. We will not be having Mass Effect tomorrow night. Our wonderful GM has some things he has to do, which we understand. But I will be back on Monday over on Wandering DM for some we only have 3 episodes left. We only have 3 episodes left of Montreal by Night. And so that's gonna be a lot of emotions. That's gonna be a lot of emotions. That's gonna be a lot of emotions. But yes, it has been a run. It has been a long, long, wonderful story, and I can't wait for it. I don't want it to end, but at the same time, I'm interested to see where things go. And will be here. Look, Krellin, you can't blame me. I wasn't even on the same freaking continent when that happened. There's no way you can blame me for what happened in Paris. Hashtag not the Ravnos' fault. At all. But, thank you everybody for hanging out with me tonight. Thank you for chatting with me about books. Thank you for letting me gush about some of my favorite reads recently. And thank you for being here and being so cool. And I think we're gonna send some love over to Punkle Nix, because Nix is playing some Helldivers, but Nix is a great person and doing some great work, and also makes some beautiful glass work. Hashtag can confirm, do have my own wine set from them. But if you missed out on anything, you can always check the YouTube, because that's where all the VODs go. And you can check out like any of the Mass Effect, any of the other games we've ever played on this channel, or any of the other games that might be coming up in the near future. Thank you for hanging out and supporting. There's also, by the way, there's merch. There is a merch store. It's fun. It helps support the channel. I also have a Ko-Fi if you want to support the channel that way, because both of those help me buy gear for this wonderful setup. And not the least of which is going to be a new CPU in the near future. Really, very near future. But all of those are good, wonderful ways to support and help me keep giving you some more fun and joy. But thank you all for being here. Thank you all for being wonderful, and I will catch you